here we got a dead squash plant. Yellow squash had a bunch of little fruits on there that was going to produce female blossoms, and it's dead. Most likely a vine borer came in. You see this right here, sign that a vine borer got in there and destroyed it. Just some of the things you got to deal with when you're growing food. It's absolutely something that you need to understand as a consumer. Is all these things takes a lot of effort, and I don't say that for myself. For you to say, "Oh no, Jason and Angela have it so hard," that's not for me. I'm talking about these small farmers. You go to a farmer's market or something of that nature where you're buying fresh produce, fresh eggs, fresh milk in some states, and maybe there's no pesticides being used, which is what I was showing you there with the squashes. That's what you do, looking for squash bug eggs, so that you can eliminate the squash bugs before they hatch and create an infestation. Angela does that every day, nearly, if not every day, nearly every day, across all of our squashes, making sure that there's no pests, because we don't use chemicals on our stuff, and there's no pesticides and things like that to keep them away. She just checks and tries to manually go through and eliminate them the best she can. Well, that's what people have to do when they're raising food, especially in a small farm setting. And to be honest with you, I'm only saying this because I got a little ticked off. we buy peaches from the peach truck every year. If any of you watched our stuff for any kind of time, you've seen us. Like last year, we bought peaches from the peach truck. We've done this for a few years now, and this year they faced some issues. They had a problem with their peach crop, to where they've got a 90% loss in peaches. Okay, 90% loss on their peach crop, which is a massive ordeal. Terrible for a family farm that really truly relies on, I would say, 75% of their income from the peaches. And that's a big deal. And they had a 9% loss because weather. All right, so they didn't get enough chill hours for their peaches. We talked about chill hours being a problem in a video earlier in the year. That was part of the issue. We learned that they were having issues there, as well as maybe some other places too. But so you depended on weather. So the chill hours didn't get enough cool weather in the winter. And also then they got cold air when they didn't need it in the spring, because then they had a hard freeze once the peaches were already out. And so they had a 90% loss in their peaches, and it affects everything. But because they faced such massive losses, it affected a lot of things about their business, about how we as the consumer were able to get their product. In fact, we couldn't get as large of a box. The boxes cost more per pound. It just affected a lot of things. And I saw some hateful comments on social media to the peach truck about them and their business. And I was pretty upset about that, because they're a family farm. Now, they're a larger family farm, but still a family farm. And it's still a husband-wife tandem who employ a lot of people to go about this business. And it made me realize that a lot of people just don't understand how many things a small farmer, a market farmer, somebody that you see at your farmer's market, somebody that you may be buying from at your place of business, whatever, how much it really takes for them to get that food to you. As a farmer, or even a small food grower like us, you have to be a weatherman, understand the weather, see what's going on, know what you need to do. You have to be a chemist almost to understand the nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium levels that you need to give your plants. You need to be a veterinarian at times to take care of your animals. You need to be a biology major sometimes when you're taking care of your animals. There's all these things you have to be that's not just a farmer. So I figured that we would show just a little bit that we go through just for our small operation. Okay, this is just, again, our backyard operation that we do a lot for our backyard, but it's just me and Angela. And it's just what we grow. Okay, it's just this small section here. And if you've watched our videos, you see it. I mean, but you go through dealing with pest pressure and on squashes and harvesting a little bit. Sure, we get a little harvest, but also, I mean, what you didn't see in the intro is that we have beets. We have beautiful beets growing. I love beets, right? I love them, but we have beautiful beets growing, but we also have a little section of those beets where a sneaky rabbit got in our backyard this year and was able to eat the tops off of some of those. So we have a little crop loss. That little squash back there, that's a little crop loss. We've got apple trees that didn't produce as much as they could have because of chill hours, most likely. But we had some apples. We were hand picking off smaller apples, off of clusters, trying to leave one apple in a cluster to make it get bigger. Okay, because the trees have never truly produced for us, but we've also always had squirrels coming and taking these apples off to where we don't know if they're going to produce because they're getting them while they're small. That's exactly what happened here. So we have empty apple trees. We have an empty peach tree down here that we're trying to get to produce a couple peaches. It's in a container, but it can handle that. It blossomed, but didn't produce any fruit. Most likely because of a weather-related issue, maybe chill hours, maybe something else. Who knows? But these are all things that farmers have to go through. And if they're doing this for a living, luckily I'm not doing this for a living because I'd be in trouble, right? But if they're doing this for a living, so if you lose a few beets, okay, let's say you get 10% loss in beets, just 10%. That's a small amount, but you've lost 10% of your beets. Let's say you lose 10% of your squash to something else. Let's say you lose 10% of your beans, 10% of this. All of a sudden now you're winding up a lot of 10% can add up to something, right? So you're losing, if you're just losing a tenth, then all of a sudden now you're out some money. You're out a bill. You're out the fertilizer to be able to buy. I mean, and plus the infrastructure. You've seen here, you saw me turning off my fence charger to my electric fence around my garden. You know why we have that? Because it keeps the animals out. I mean, like one year we had raccoons, possums, groundhogs, rabbits, skunks. We had everything you can think of getting in there and eating our tomatoes, eating eggplant, eating whatever they could find. So we had to buy a fence, buy a charger, and keep buying chargers, by the way, because the chargers wind up wearing out. But that's the third charger we bought. I think at least three chargers that we bought for that fence. Well, if I'm relying on that, hey, that's infrastructure. You're having to buy infrastructure. That's something that I'm not making money from infrastructure, right? We're not selling the infrastructure. So a farmer has to do all that. Now, okay, again, you can say, well, did you have to buy an electric fence? Can't you just build a fence? Okay, I can build a fence, but groundhogs, possums, and raccoons can all climb that fence. So that's not going to do much good. Imagine having to buy a high tunnel, a greenhouse, fences for multiple things, or just maybe one massive electric fence to go around your property. It adds up. These people go through so much to put food on your table. And yes, it can cost money. Especially if it's organic, okay, if they're not using pesticides and they're doing a lot of hands-on work, yes, organic produce from the farmer's market is going to cost you some money sometimes, all right? Sometimes it's going to cost you more than you want to pay. But it's there because people have done some work. And we're showing you just a little bit of things we go through and the work we put in just for us. That's just a little bit. It's not the 2 hours Angela spends watering stuff. It's not the corn that just doesn't germinate. The popcorn does good. The sweet corn doesn't really germinate. It just hasn't. I've planted sweet corn seeds twice. I've got pretty much nothing back there to show for it. Okay, those are all things that people deal with. So you seeds that don't germinate, pests that eating off your stuff, weather related. We had a little bit of hail in a storm, and we've got holes in some leaves. Luckily, there's no real crop damage. But like, you think about people where you're getting tennis ball sized hail. If there's some corn or some wheat or somebody growing tomatoes out there, especially, destroyed crops. You get a tornado, destroyed crops. These things add up, and there's real families and real people behind there that it affects their lives. Now, I know it's unfortunate. Sometimes it costs you more than what you want to pay for it. But the hateful comments on social media, the hateful phone calls, the hateful customers, people complaining about how much having to buy, there's some real hands and real feet and real lives and real families behind that's working hard for you to complain about it. Yes, prices have went up, and your wages probably haven't went up. I'm right there with you. I've got a full-time job that I work at, 40 hours a week or more. Right now it's just 40 hours a week most of the time. But yes, my wages went up a lot less than a smaller percentage than the percentage of inflation. That's real. I understand that. But there's real people back there putting in time. Like, if they're having to pay people, an outside job working out in the heat and sweating and working hard, probably gonna cost them $20 to $25 an hour. Okay, that's honest. And at least here it would, that's for sure. But then, if they're just working it all themselves, let's just say this, the farmer working it himself, he would probably like to make $25 to $30 an hour for all the work he's doing, and he's probably like to make overtime. Sure, that's a real wage. But the fact is, he's probably working at least 12 hours a day and not making money that would turn into overtime. Honestly, that's the honest truth, is that the wages they're going to make off of that is not what you would like to make at your job. Okay, but he's working hard to produce food. Hey, honestly, live a life that's free, like you would want. It's freedom, a freedom life, like they would want to live. But it's also a hard working life. It doesn't always have the rewards you'd like for it to make, that you like to have. I mean, somebody complained. Well, they didn't really complain. I was selling my organic eggs at work for $5 a dozen before the egg shortage happened. Okay, so this is back, I don't know, a couple years ago. We'll say maybe even maybe 2022, spring of 2022. And people are like, oh, $5. Oh, and so I can tell they want to pay for it, which is fine, by the way. And I'm okay with that. If you don't want organic eggs, go ahead, that's fine. But if you're looking to buy good eggs, then you can buy mine, right? I mean, I don't have a ton of them to sell, but then I had a solid amount. But I kind of got a little frustrated, and I was like, well, do you want to go out there in the wintertime when it's minus 10 degrees, change out water, do this, do that, do it in the snow, do this in the rain, do it in the heat, do it in the cold, wouldn't matter. Anytime, let the chickens out in the morning when they're not laying eggs, put them up at night when they're not laying eggs. If you want to go ahead and do all that work, then hey, go ahead, you can have your own stinking eggs and not pay $5 a dozen for them. But if you don't want to do all that work, when there's no rewards, there's no eggs, then don't complain to me about the price I need to pay just to recover feed costs, because our feed costs money. I kind of feel the same way about, you know, your organic produce or just your bulk produce is really good, and your farmers market people and people who are operating these small farms. Well, hey, if you don't want to pay those prices, then get your own stinking farm. But if you don't want to pay, if you want the food but don't want the work, you may have to understand that sometimes that costs you money. All right, and this is only public service announcement. Okay, hey, understand that real food takes real time and takes real work for real people to put real food on your real plate. Okay, so thank you guys so much for watching. We do appreciate it. Again, don't complain about these people who are working hard to feed you. Thank you guys so much for watching. We appreciate it. My name is Jason. This is Art of Creation Homestead. We love y'all. God bless you and goodbye.